When I was a little kid, my parents really introduced me to poetry. And for me, poetry was always something that was supposed to be used to push society forward, right? To sort of like point a finger at things that were going wrong and the folks who were also responsible, right, for the challenges in our world. And I know that's a sort of an outcropping of growing up during the Black arts movement. And so as a kid, I was hearing the last poets, I was hearing Gil Scott Heron. And my parents sort of raised me with that mentality, like art was at its best when it was socially conscious. And I learned to write when I was a college student. I also came up, as a teenager, person in my 20s, listening to hip hop and always being drawn to artists who were socially conscious. And so poetry for me, when I was learning how to write, and I mean literally learning how to write sentences in college, how to construct, sentences and paragraphs, and then the poetry kind of came from that. I was initially, I think, using poetry to just sort of wrestle with the developing identity of being a person who was LD as well as being a Black man. But I didn't stay there very long. You start looking at, well, why is the world the way that it is? And I got out of college and started working for the New Jersey Department of Education's Office of Special Education. I started working with kids, teaching them self-advocacy skills, leadership skills. And when I would go to conferences and events and I would be surrounded by researchers, I mean, they would pull out, it was like PowerPoints and charts and all these sort of things. And it just occurred to me that poetry was not necessarily a better way, but it should be one of the tools that we use to communicate information, particularly the emotional aspect of so much of what we deal with, right? Like we're dealing with people and people's lives. And so spoken word tends to be a very powerful way to be able to convey that emotion. So I dusted off some of the poems that I had written when I was in college, and I started writing some new ones. And it is remained a cornerstone for me of how I present, how I talk to educators or young people. And, I think particularly for young folks, it's like, they show up at a conference, sometimes like the school drags them there. It's like, why am I here? And so if you start out by just doing a poem, and I think a lot of young people, a lot of them don't even know really what spoken word poetry is, right? I get sometimes these kids are like, you should be a rapper. I was like, dude, I'm not a rapper, right? Like I'm close to being a rapper, but it's a different aesthetic. And then for professionals, right, like just no one is expecting a spoken word poem, right? And so, you get the experience of people just sometimes being in awe. I get a lot of tears when I perform. And then there are also people I know who are really challenged by it. You get a lot of like mean faces as well, and all of that is great, right? All of that is a sign that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
For more information about learning disabilities and ADHD, please visit ldonline.org. This video was made possible by a partnership between the National Education Association and WETA.